hope for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke Radio for the masses. Today is Monday, December 9th, 2019. 343 days into the new year. Just 22 days left. I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world. All across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south. Far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planets. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? You ready? It's Monday, kicking off another great week here on Fade to Black. We're going to do that tonight with Greg and Dana Newkirk. That's right. They're both here. We're going to be discussing Hellier Season 2. And if you haven't seen it yet, I can guarantee you one thing. You're going to be watching it tonight after the show. It's an amazing series. In 2012, Greg received an email from a man calling himself David Christie, who claimed that he and his family were being terrorized by unearthly creatures of the night. After exchanging emails, David disappeared. For the next 5 years, the case only got stranger and more connections and mysterious emails came in. Then, in 2017, Greg and his team of researchers traveled to rural Kentucky, not knowing what they would uncover or how deep they would discover what the case might lead to. Now, that was the premise of the first season of Hellier, a 5-part documentary. But the Hellier project didn't stop there. The team continued to research and explore, and the case only went haywire. After thousands of miles of driving, months of research and filming, Hellier returned back in November 2019, last month, with a full second season run comprised of 10 full-length episodes. And tonight, Greg and Dana return to Fade to Black to discuss their journey of Hellier and how it has not only changed them, but their entire production team as well. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black two of my favorites, Greg and Dana Newkirk. You guys, troublemakers, the both of you.
We love it. Thanks for having us, Jimmy.
Man, oh man, oh man, oh man. Okay. First off, congratulations. Okay. Lots of work went into this, and we'll be talking about that tonight. That's the first thing. The second thing is, as last season, this is for the audience, by the way, not necessarily for you guys, but at the end of last season, Greg and I, and Dana, we all talked about how it wrapped up and the loose ends that were there. I had tons of questions, and you guys both promised me that that's it. You guys are, bearing down, and you're going to go straight for this. And here we are at season 2. And I think it was, Greg, you and I talked, it was probably over a month ago, before you guys went to England, right?
Yeah.
And you said, Church, you have no idea, man.
That's about it.
That's about it, right? And I said, what about? You said, check, and check. Stay put. I'll get you the preview of it, and you will see. I think you're going to be happy. Well, now I've watched the second season, and all I can say is this. The amount of work that is here for the world to see what you two, and the rest of the team, by the way, went through tirelessly to absolutely follow the clues and the synchronicities, to have that commitment is astounding, and it is presented so well in the film or the series. So congratulations on that. How do you feel now that it has wrapped? Have you had a chance to take a breath and go, man, did we just do that?
I almost feel like we haven't yet.
Not yet.
It feels like we've given birth and now we're trying to figure out how to be parents.
That is a good way of putting it, actually.
You know, is it to the point where when something amazing happens in your life, and we've all had, occurrences happen, where you go, man, did that actually, was that real? Did this actually happen? You now have the opportunity to honestly ask that question, because you can look back. It must be a blur, right?
Oh, God, if Carl hadn't edited it so well, I wouldn't even remember what happened. So much stuff has happened. I mean, one of the things people don't realize either is that we started shooting the second season like 6 months before the first season even came out. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of all melded into this weird 2 years where, man, I don't envy Carl's job, where he had to sit and actually organize everything and figure out how to present it, because as you've seen, there's so much insane stuff in there. And so much on the cutting room floor. Our lives are a blur, so we're lucky to have Carl, who can put it in a nice linear fashion for us that we can show people and say, yes, this did actually happen.
Well, exactly. And speaking of a linear fashion, I'm glad you put it that way, Dana. Mm-hmm. For you, all of this started, oddly enough, with this email back in 2012 with Greg. He's just a kid, right? I mean, he's just a kid. For you, you had to accept the journey that was about to unfold. You don't know what's about to go down over these next 2 years, all because of that progenitor. That email going back to his ghost hunting team when he was a kid. And I want to ask you, that original email, what did you make of that? And did you have any idea of what was about to unfold in front of you?
I think you can tell pretty much for the most part. I tend to be maybe not necessarily the most skeptical person, but I kind of like to ground everything as much as I can. So initially, when the initial emails, I was very skeptical of them. I was very convinced that we were being messed with, and I sort of distanced myself from them a little bit. And at the time, even for me, I think I mentioned it in the first season, but it was the photos really that were the clincher for me, that convinced me, like, okay, this is something that we seriously need to pay attention to. And I mean, at that time, if you had even asked me this 5 years ago, I don't think that I would have had any idea that it would have spiraled into this investigation, into this specific case, and that we would still be here kind of following these threads all these years later. So I have definitely come full circle. And even though I still like to consider myself, a pretty grounded person, I think that initially I was very skeptical, and today, I'm just a part of this investigation now, and so it's pulled me in.
Would you say you've embraced the goblins?
I have fully embraced the goblins. I am one with the goblins, as they would say.
Well, you bring up the photographs, which is interesting to me, because in any relationship, and yours is a unique relationship, but in any relationship, you tend to have somebody that's more pragmatic and somebody else that is out of their mind. Right?
Yes.
And
what are you trying to say here, Jimmy?
Right. One is constantly fighting, trying to ground the other to pull back to reality, kind of thing. Yeah, but for you, Dana, you got pulled in the other direction. The pragmatic one got pulled into the craziness because the evidence was so solid, right?
Yeah. I mean, It was really for us taking those photos and talking to cryptozoologists and people who knew more about that kind of space than us, and having these people tell us, no, you need to take this seriously, because these photos have the footprints in the photos have dermal ridges, which at the time, we really didn't know a whole lot about. And now all these years later, we know how difficult that it would be to fake. We know that it would be almost impossible to fake in detail. So yeah, it was an intense experience, and really kind of something that I had to at a certain point take seriously.
When Greg, I'm pointing all of this at Dana because you've got a lot of stuff to answer for continuing on in the show.
Sure.
But Dana, there's another part about this where I feel that Greg understands synchronicities and the opportunities. He's willing to go, wait a minute. Did you understand how important synchronicities would be in life before the series came together?
It's funny because I've had synchronicities with regards to this case, but I think out of all of us, I might be the one who's experienced the least amount of synchronicities.
Right.
Which I think, I don't know, maybe that's my role to play in this case, is to kind of remain the person who's somewhat an arm's distance away, maybe to kind of ground everyone when they get too crazy, or maybe that's, again, just my role. But I think once I started seeing them happening to the people around me, I definitely had to take them incredibly seriously. Like just seeing the experiences that Carl was going through, and Greg, and even Connor, and Tyler too. I can't not take that seriously now. And at this point, I think in the game, we know that we absolutely have to take those synchronicities as seriously as possible.
You have to. And those changes happen to me too as well. I think that we all do. But for you personally, if somebody comes up to you now, or it's in a conversation over dinner or whatever, and somebody goes, this weird synchronicity happened today, you're gonna snap to attention, aren't you?
Absolutely. It's like a buzzword now. It's like sort of, I think I've described it this way before, but every time I hear it now, or anytime I kind of I'm in the space of one of those synchronicities, it's like you've been hit with a tuning fork. It's like a vibration that you can feel. And so I think I've over the past few years, specifically with Hellier, I've become pretty good at picking up on that weird synchronicity vibration. Isn't
it strange how, and you guys talk about it a lot during the series, but in all seriousness, most of this planet doesn't even know what the word is. And they don't know when these things happen to them. They're just cruising through life and are oblivious. That's the fascinating part to me, isn't it? Because synchronicities are actually quite fun.
Yeah, and I think one of the cool things too is, there's been a lot of people who've watched Hellier who recognize something that maybe they didn't know how to put their finger on before, and now they have a way to explain it. That they were and have been experiencing those synchronicities.
I will say there is a synchronicity drinking game that people have formed around Hellier that I cannot stand behind, because you will die.
Yeah, don't recommend
if you drink every time someone says the word synchronicity, you will die.
Don't do it.
You would die in one episode.
Yes,
exactly.
You would.
You would die in one episode. Okay, let's go back to episode 1 of Hellier 2. And I think that was, I'm glad you did that episode the way that you did, because if somebody missed season 1, then it's the perfect starter course there. There's that part of it. But the second part of it, if you did see Hellier season 1, you get reminded of all of the different subjects that were left on the table. When you guys sat down, I'll throw this to Greg first, and then Dana. But Greg, when you guys sat down and said, "Okay, what's everybody got?" Was that pretty overwhelming to see that everybody was still on the case, and there was a lot of everybody had their own individual focus?
Yeah, actually, if you watch the episode, you'll notice that the only two people who didn't really bring anything were me and Dana, because we're so burned out and just over it. At that point, everyone talks about my beard. That's my depression beard. we were just dealing with like Hellier was going to come out in another month. I was super stressed out. I didn't know what people were going to think about it. But it was still important because we had been working on this thing for a year at least at this point. It was 14 months after we had done that initial investigation. And so much of what we had discovered during that first investigation had piqued the interest of, Carl and Connor and even our friend Tyler, who makes a very brief appearance in the first season. They had gone off and done their own research. They'd pulled on their own threads. So it was necessary, but obviously very overwhelming when we all sat down. They all came out. It was actually probably around this time last year. They all came out and they sat down and slapped down all these file folders and started going through all of their research. And Dana and I just kind of sat there in awe of the work that they had done over that past year and in the threads that they had uncovered from the research that they had done. The first episode was the episode we were the most concerned about because it is kind of a bottle episode where we don't really leave the living room because there's so much information that has to be dumped, which is really a testament to what Carl's been able to do and the way he was able to edit it, because I think it's necessary, but it's not boring like a lot of those types of episodes are. There's just so much information coming at you and so many big threads that we have to follow throughout that second season that I think people are very happy we decided to chase because of what was left over from season one.
And there's another. How was this funded? I'm asking. I'm asking a direct question. The question is real. How is it funded? Because the level of, and you guys pulled it off in season one too, as well. It's very well shot and stuff. But the level of production this season is as good as any production company puts together with huge budgets. So the question is, how's it funded? Do you guys have an unlimited budget? Are you guys Steven Spielberg? Is it like that, or is it something else?
That would be amazing.
We wish.
We are entirely self-funded.
Yeah, we're about as independent as you can get. Yeah, the people that you see on camera are the people who make Hellier.
Yeah, and it's really, it's a lot of. Carl is amazing. He's an amazing director, and if you put a camera in his hand, he can pretty much make anything look beautiful, regardless of the camera. But it's self-funded. We've invested sort of in the project because we believe in it so much and we believe in sharing it with the world. And so it's blood, sweat, and tears. It's a lot of love kind of being poured into something.
People don't believe us when we say it, but the first season was made for about $1,500. And that was $1,500 that we all just pooled together. Some of us paid for hotels, and some of us paid for food and
borrowed some cameras,
borrowed cameras from friends who had cameras, that kind of thing. And then we were able to make a little bit of money off of the first season and put that towards the second season. So one of the really cool things that you get to see because of how the second season was shot, so much of it before season one dropped, you notice that in this episode, the audio sounds a little better. Well, that's because Connor hit his credit card and he decided, I'm going to take the audio thing seriously. And he got a nice audio mixer. And then you see, oh, wow, the lens looks real nice and smooth and creamy in this one. That's because Carl hit the credit card and he bought a nicer lens. And so it really, honestly, is a labor of love that we've all invested a lot of time and energy into. And here's the other thing. We release it for free. Mm-hmm. And we only do that because it's important for us that as many people see it as possible, because we love it so much, and it's important to the case. Because as people see in season 2, releasing Hellier for free becomes part of the case because we get so many leads because it's open to such a wide, massive audience. So the entire thing is a labor of love. It'd be great to have someone back up a dump truck of money to us. We'd love it. But that's not as important as the message.
So just so I want to understand what you're saying here, that behind your SUV, right, with the 4 of you in it, you guys don't have a catering truck and then a lighting and sound truck.
A lot of Taco Bell, a lot of Denny's.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of protein bars.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm sort of making fun, but that's the point is it comes through. I mean, the dedication in this series is, there's no outside influences. There isn't somebody else from the network telling you guys what to do. This is your experience. This is your production. And in the end, you guys are going to be as honest as you can with everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that was really, really important to us. I mean, part of the reason the first season took so long to get out is because we were talking to networks. We were talking to production companies to see what we could do. And there was a lot of interest. I mean, it's a really great story. And so there's a lot of people who are interested in telling that story and making money from it. But when it came down to it, we realized most of these people wanted us to find goblins and would have made sure that we found goblins.
Right.
Are picking up what I'm putting down. And so the goblins really became more of a metaphor in Hellier, because they weren't really the overall point of what we were doing and the journey that we were on. And, everything is shot and told in a really unconventional way. Carl shot this in cinematic widescreen with a cinema lens. It's not told in a traditional 3-act structure. There's one story being told through 15 episodes now at this point. And that type of stuff was very hard to swallow for a lot of networks. And so we just decided, well, screw it. Let's just do it ourselves. And we'll see if people like this, we'll keep doing it. And fortunately, it seems like they do.
Now, something strange happened to me in both seasons. I want to go back to season 1. We'll talk about season 2 when we come back from the break. But it provoked some pretty strange dreams around the church house. Did you guys have the crap scared out of you? Did you guys have some pretty nutty dreams? And because of not only the subjects that you guys, some of it is pretty intense, but you're also out there doing this on location. It had to affect you emotionally, didn't it?
Oh, constantly.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think all of us have had bouts of strange dreams and weird things happening in our homes, and that was absolutely, and you're right. It's incredibly emotionally taxing to a point. So yeah, I mean, I can speak for myself. I definitely have had and consistently still have really weird dreams around it.
And I know you're not the only one to have experienced that too. I mean, every day we get messages from people talking about the weird dreams that they've had after Hellier, and I think that's a side effect of what Hellier is. It's a very strange project with very strange energy around it, and it does affect the viewers.
There was a couple of points last year during Hellier season 1 where I watched it like 3 times, and I made the mistake of binging, right, autoplay, and falling asleep in the middle of an episode.
Oh no!
Right, and you've got the episode playing in the background. And having that influence your REM sleep, right?
Oh man!
And you wake up and you're just like, man, I feel strange, right? But that's my experience. I can only imagine what you guys were going through while you were playing this out in real life.
Oh yeah, for me personally, there's certain locations in the first season that still I dream about all the time. Some like locations that became like the gas station, which is a really kind of centralized point in the first season. It's a gas station, which was the major hub of Hellier, and it has become a place that kind of pops up in my dreams often. But you're right, it does leave you with a very strange, weird feeling.
I had dreams about the tunnel, the abandoned tunnel.
Yeah,
the climax takes place, and I had dreams about that place a lot.
Me too.
Now, what about we're going to take a break right here, and we'll come back and start with season 2. But what about the people of Hellier? Are they okay with this? What is tourism like?
I don't think there's much tourism to speak of in Hellier, and the response is mixed. I mean, here's the thing. People from Hellier see a bunch of who they assume are city slicker kids who stick out like a sore thumb with a lot of expensive camera equipment, and they wonder what we're there to exploit. And I know that there have been other television series, particularly even paranormal television series, that have come there and they've just kind of made these people feel and look stupid. And so I think people were pretty standoffish about it. And the thing you have to remember is people live in a town like Hellier because they couldn't get out or because they don't want to be found. and so people with cameras roaming around, they're not really super into it. So we've had a mix of responses. There's our people who are like, this is fantastic, I'm glad you guys are shining light onto this, and then there's people who are like, stay out of Hellier, don't ever come back around here again. And that's just kind of the nature of it.
And the original house, the street, right?
Right.
Have you? Those people, you know what I mean? They must feel a little bit strange about their neighborhood being presented this way.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and one of the things, when at the end of the day, one of the last passes that we do when we're editing is all of us sit down and we look at what needs to be kept a secret and what needs to be blurred. And really, I mean, at the end of the day, the one thing that is sort of the center point for all of it when we're doing that is we don't ever want to invade someone's personal space. We don't ever want to put someone in a position that they don't want to be in. So we're always we attempt to be very careful about what we share, what we show, and what we don't. And so
we always want to help, not hurt.
Exactly. Yeah.
And with any of our projects, no matter what it is, we want to help, not hurt.
Yeah, I did notice that disclaimer that you guys have there. You need to respect others out there and their property, because you guys don't hold back. And when we come back, let's start talking about Hellier season 2. Absolutely extraordinary. The question I have is this, and you can answer this quickly. You did 10 episodes for season 2. Certainly, you have the same amount of material for season 1. Could you have done 4 extra episodes for season 1? And is there stuff that we may see in the future from season 1?
Season 1 happened over the course of 2 weeks, and so there really wasn't much left over. Season 2 happened over the course of a year, and there's so much stuff on the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
Like when Carl said he was only going to do 10 episodes, I laughed at him. I was like, no way. And I think that's a testament to how fast the season moves, because once you sit down for season 2, it just kind of boom, 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 boom. It just goes. But there is a lot of stuff on the cutting room floor, and you never know when that'll get used.
Yeah, there was, again, there's going to be no spoilers tonight for anybody out there that thinks that we're going to do that to you. We're not going to do that. But I'm going to give one spoiler away, which is this, and it's extraordinary. In episode 10, it's right there, flashes up on the screen, September 16th or September 19th, 2019, Connor, blah, 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 blah. And I'm sitting here and I'm going, it's only December. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
That's the cool part.
That is a great part. This is about as fresh of a TV series as you can have, right?
Yeah.
Once people have finished Hellier 2, they're probably only a month behind where we are, which wasn't the case in season 1. So we've basically give people the tools. They can do their own investigations if they want. They are right where we are when they finish.
Let's take our break right here tonight. Greg and Dana Newkirk, Hellier season 2 is the subject. We'll pick up right where we are leaving off after this short break. Stay with us. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. We'll be right back. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. Tonight, Hellier 2. Season 2 of Hellier with Greg and Dana Newkirk. You can go to Amazon Prime. It is playing free there. If you go to their Hellier.tv website, all the links for Amazon are right there and all of the complete episodes, and you can go and check it out. I would recommend everybody, if you can, if you haven't seen it, watch Hellier first and then roll into Hellier 2. Now, let's actually talk about a couple of things. And first, I want to talk about Indrid and Indrid Cold, because this is something that not only is from, it's all of the Hellier story, but it's a foundation certainly for Hellier 2. Who is Indrid Cold?
Indrid Cold is he was an extraterrestrial entity that appeared to Woody Derenberger around the same time as the 1967 Mothman flap in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And he appeared to Woody on the side of a highway and said, I'm from the planet Lanulos, and I want to tell you about where I've been. He took Woody on adventures in his ship and became friends with him. And that figure, particularly for people who are fans of the Mothman prophecies, Indrid Cold became a really central figure in a lot of what happened in that case. And we kind of accidentally stumbled onto how he was connected to the Hellier case. And one of the emails that I had received from a man who called himself Terry Wrist, who the only real references to that name appear in the appendix of a book called Secret Cipher of the Euphonauts by Alan Greenfield, which is a very esoteric book about using magic rituals to summon and repel alien entities. This guy, Terry, has an interview where he talks about finding Indrid Cold while he was hiding out in a town in Kentucky. And we didn't realize that there was a reference to that in those initial emails that were sent to me until we went to Hellier. And after that, Indrid Cold became a very central part of our case as well.
Now, the UFO, the alien, the ET contact side of this, you guys, well, there's always been a general interest for the both of you with the subject of UFOs. But by and large, you guys are more about paranormal and magic and ghost and that side of things. And the UFO subject could not, how do I say, get away from what Hellier was. It kept, that subject kept reappearing over and over again, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, again, like you'd mentioned, kind of our wheelhouse was really ghosts and the things that you would kind of classify as the paranormal. So, having all of these UFO ties linking themselves to Hellier, it became apparent that there was no way that we were going to get away from it. So we at that point realized that we just had to kind of fully embrace it and embrace that community and investigating that way.
We learned a lot about UFOs in a very short amount of time.
We definitely did.
and then there is the whole John Keel, and this is what I find so fascinating about Hellier, is that whatever you take, whether it's Alan Greenfield, right, and then the Terry Wrist side of things, and Christie and Ingrid and John Keel, and it continues, and it all goes back to, you guys wouldn't be doing any of this if it wasn't the synchronicities coming off of that first letter, that first email that you got, Greg.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the thing. All of it comes back to the first emails, and everything stretches out. It's funny, even in season 2, as people will see as they watch, there are things hidden in those emails that we didn't even pick up on until the second season. So it's almost like there's time-released clues in these correspondences that give us what we need when we need them. And they're undeniable. Like they're just undeniable, and they're strange, and they've sent us in these directions where we're reading books we never would have given a second thought, even 5 years ago. We've learned more about chasing the phenomena in the last 2 years than we ever have in the rest of our lives. And I think I can speak pretty confidently for the rest of the group too, that it's so strange that a couple of emails have been so life-changing for the group of us. They've really changed the direction in all of the research that we've done and added so much to the way that we even look at paranormal phenomena just from a few emails.
Now, I'm going to throw this over to Dana. In Hellier season 1, you guys at the beginning of the season are innocent little babes in the woods.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And by the middle of season 2, I don't know what the F-bomb count is.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how many WTF moments you guys have when you are looking at each other, but it does tend to spin out of control. How many WTF moments did you guys end up having? I mean, real ones.
I so many of them, so many. And it was funny too, because when one of the jokes that we kind of were passing around was looking back at the first season of Hellier when we were shooting the second season and thinking about how quaint all of this was, how how much things had changed. But yeah, there were so many moments, like legitimately earth-shattering moments this second season that all of my swearing, my trucker mouth definitely got a little out of control.
We all quit.
That's true. Yeah,
every single one of us at certain points of shooting season 2 all quit, and then had to be kind of coaxed back into the fold.
Well, because quite honestly, it got very, very, very intense. Not only the show, but the subject matter, where you're talking about, three-toed green goblins hiding in caves, right? In season 1, that's cute.
Right, that's kind of fun.
That's cute. That's fun. Let's go chase goblins. Okay, and it was a great journey. Now the subjects that started to unfold in season 2 would make anybody uncomfortable. I don't care how seasoned you are. You started to go down some roads that are pretty creepy and crawly and rated R, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think even just thinking about being in Hellier and how kind of uncomfortable everyone was, it pales in comparison to some of the moments that we have in the second season where you're legitimately frightened. Like to process what you're going through in those moments, it's almost like you kind of have to have an out of body experience just to sort of get through a lot of them. Yeah. And I think there are certain moments throughout the second season where I think specifically Connor and I wear our expressions pretty evidently on our faces.
I think Connor's journey is one of my favorites in the second season, because I mean, he says pretty much at the top of season 2, this isn't fun anymore. He didn't want to chase the leads that were being delivered to us because they weren't fun, but he also knew that we had to. And that's sort of where all of our heads were at. We were very reluctant to follow the threads that were being handed to us. I'm glad we did now, but man alive.
I know, I was reluctant. I was a viewer. And I hope Connor is listening right now, because I want to say this. You two guys are seasoned. You've been out there doing this for a while. You know what, possibly to expect and how to handle things. Carl is pretty strong. He's a robust guy. He looks, he looks manly,
He's intimidating.
He's intimidating. Poor Connor, nice guy, funny guy, great sense of humor, open mind. And spoiler alert, right? He reaches a point where in Somerset, and we're going to talk about that now, where he's like, man, I got to blow this town. I can't be here anymore. And I felt so, because that was one of the most honest things that one could say, but you could see the look in his eyes, right? The fun part in Connor left. That got on a bus and split, didn't it?
Connor basically just had like a 10-episode long nervous breakdown. So everyone can delight in Connor's stress, but he comes out on the other side a stronger person. I think we all did. We all came out stronger people. That's
the cool thing, I think, too, about like this group of people is when and like Greg had mentioned, we had each quit at separate points during the course of this part of the investigation. I think the nice thing about it is that when someone reaches a breaking point, there's usually a couple people there who can kind of help that person put it back into context. And so it's nice. It's a nice group of people that are all different and can kind of wheel each other back in, walk each other back off the ledge when you get to that moment where you just literally wanting to get in your car and drive away.
Well, let's talk about Somerset. Because at that moment, Connor literally looks around the town. You guys are on the street. He's like, man, I just don't want to be here. How? And I was like, Connor, I'm right with you, bro. I saw the last scene, right? I'm with you. How are the people of Somerset dealing with this? Because you're not You're not covering up the name Somerset here. You guys didn't leap that out. That's not a blurred image. Somerset is named. Specifically.
I mean, there's that was part of the issue with making the project, is there's a lot of stuff that normally we would have probably obscured or hidden, but because of the synchronicities that led us to these places, in order to tell the story properly, we just didn't really have an opportunity. We had to show these things to show people why these places were important, and we really tried to walk a tightrope when it came to Somerset and some of the things that are told to us, because part of the reason that we go to Somerset is because of a new batch of emails that came in that were extremely frightening, extremely disturbing, so much so that it would have been very easy for us to throw them into a crank folder and say, well, this is nuts. But because those emails came in before the first season was released and they had specific keywords in them, we really had no choice but to take them seriously. We had to follow up on them.
And the timing of the emails coming in also were really interesting.
The timing, when they came in at a very specific time where it just seemed obvious to us that somebody was watching what we were doing and watching where we were going. And we had to follow up on them. And so Somerset is another town in Kentucky that becomes very integral in this case because of what's being experienced there and because of these particular set of emails. I don't really know how the town feels about it right now. I don't have any plans to go there anytime soon. I do know that that one of the local bars, one of the people that we interview, who gives us a lot of leads in this particular area, and is actually the person who solidifies that we were right in taking these emails seriously. Nate, the bar that he co-owns, they screened like the couple episodes, I think, a few days ago. So there are at least people there who are saying, I'm glad someone's talking about this. And they're glad that we approached it in such a way as to not, it would be very easy for us to start a new satanic panic with some of the things that were sent to us and told to us in a lot of these interviews. But we also know what being on the opposite end of that is like. Dana's a witch. She's a practicing witch. People like her, because of the satanic panic that was started in the 80s, a lot of these people had their lives ruined. People went to jail for things that never happened. So we were very careful in how we presented this information, to not try and start that and to say, well, maybe some of these things that people were seeing, people only have the capability to explain the things that they've seen in terms that they're familiar with. So maybe somebody saw a pagan ritual and they just assumed, well, that's satanic or they're doing this or that. We had to make sure that we showed both sides of that story, even though they're kind of scary. And people can do their own research. They can look up. There's a lot of really weird things about this town, Somerset, that they can find very easily with a little bit of Googling, and they can make up their own minds.
Now, there were, and I'm specifically talking about the scene with Nate in his rehearsal studio, right?
Yeah.
He looks like a musician.
Yes.
And because I saw the guitars. So,
yes.
So that scene was about as intense as anything that I've ever seen from anybody. That was the real deal as far as intensity goes. But when you start hearing, Dane, I'm going to throw this to you. When you start hearing things like satanic rituals or pedophilia or capes and gowns and underground and UFOs and little green and all of this is coming at you from somebody that's saying, I live here, I know people, I know what's going on, and this is what's happening, bam, 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 bam. What goes through your head? I remember seeing Greg's face a couple of times in that scene. But for Dana, what's going through your head when you see somebody that lives in this town lay it out like that?
I think too, there's a moment, there's a scene afterwards where we're all kind of sitting together and just sort of talking about it. And I think Connor said it perfectly, which is it would be one thing if we were learning this information and we were miles away from the spot, but we weren't. We were right there. And that is it's terrifying. It was very, very scary to have someone just go down a checklist without being prompted, without being given any information that at least we had. It was very scary to have someone literally go down through a checklist and basically mark correct next to every insane, crazy, scary piece of information that you had been given privately about this town. And that's what Nate did in that moment. And it was an earth shattering moment. We literally did not, I think we had to really try to process it. And even then, I don't even think that we fully processed what was actually going on in that moment.
It was pretty intense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And after you guys left, real quick, just give me the quick answer. How long did you sit with Nate? Just really quick.
We sat with him for 4 hours.
4 hours. So wait. Hold on.
Yeah.
So after 4 hours with Nate and you depart, did you guys feel like you were being watched?
Oh my gosh,
God, yeah.
The whole time we were there, we felt like we were being watched. We were noticing weird cars. We were noticing, people looking at us strange. And it's not a very big town, but it was enough that everyone was really on edge. We all felt very strongly as if people were paying attention to us or that they were watching us.
Yeah. And people only, like I said, 4 hours we sat with this guy. People only hear her in Hellier 2, they only hear a fraction of the stuff, and there's stuff that we just couldn't even show because we were worried about our own safety.
Now again, no spoilers here. I'm not going to do that. I want everybody to go and watch, but they need to key in on these segments that we're talking about here, right? Like Nate. And the other one, and I'm going to give you an Emmy Award for the FaceTime video from jail.
Yeah.
Okay.
Man.
All right. Now, how does somebody FaceTime from jail?
Dude, that was a surprise to me too. So, light spoilers, but we have to interview someone who's in jail. And I thought that the way that this would work is, I'm like, oh, well, we're just going to have to hide a recorder in my pocket, and I'm going to have to go in and, pick up the phone from the one side of the glass, that kind of thing. That's not how they do it anymore. Apparently, it's so weird, man. They have their own inter-jail Facebook thing where they have profile pictures and stuff, and you have to dump put $25 in the prisoner's account. And so they can talk to you, and it's 25 cents a message to send each other basically Facebook messages back and forth. But you can schedule visitation via their own weird version of Skype. And so that made our job a lot easier because we were still able to talk to this person in jail who had all this information and film it and record it, which we would likely not have been able to do had this person, had we had to go and actually sit, in the jail and do one of these person-to-person things. But man, that blew my mind. I didn't realize that they had basically prison social media now.
And this is what was so great about that. Because of how it's done, we're talking about somebody that is in jail, and she's a she, everybody, that is not in communication with Nate and certainly doesn't know about the conversations that you guys are out there filming because she's in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right?
And we didn't tell anyone that we were doing this because of how scary things were. No one had any idea that we were in Somerset. Even we were talking to Nate. He just thought we were in the area collecting ghost stories, weird stories of Kentucky. No one knew that we were embedded in this town when we were doing all of this. They had no clue. Now,
when this FaceTime video goes down, and it was just like with Nate, bam, 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 right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Man. And it is also, for Dana, going down the checklist.
Yeah.
And as a viewer, you're like, no, come on, really? And again, one of the most intense things I've ever seen in any type of docuseries.
It was incredible. It was that moment where you've got multiple sources that are existing very separately. They don't know each other, and they're validating each other. without realizing that they're validating each other. And you're smack dab in the middle of it, realizing, oh crap, this is
We're
all
in trouble.
real. Like this is actually really happening in this place.
Can I ask you? Okay, it's sort of a spoiler. I do have one question about that. She mentions a house with an elevator, right?
Right.
And she mentioned, did you guys go and try to find this house?
Oh, we found the house.
You found the house with the elevator.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. That's not in the series.
No, I mean, it can't be. It's private property. There's a lot of stuff that, unfortunately, we're not going to get permission to show that stuff. And, and again, we don't know that there's an elevator. We don't know that for a fact. Okay. We know where these places are, but
we just know of the location.
We know
that
the
she's referring
location.
to.
We know a lot of different locations. We know like names. We know places and specifics that we, for a lot of legal reasons, we just cannot give out in a widely released documentary.
Because the way that I don't know how much of the FaceTime video couldn't make it into the series,
right?
But she's dropping. She's a whistleblower. Right.
Yeah. I mean, the stuff that she's saying is really scary and involves, underground secret societies, cults, and worship of these creatures that happen in these old cave systems.
And I think the thing too for her is in that moment, she's finally having someone listen to her. Someone's finally taking her seriously, and that was what was even more chilling to me, is that this poor person has been screaming this and no one's been listening to her, and now we have multiple sources that can validate everything that she's saying, and that was a really big moment. She says
there's a moment, I'm going to paraphrase here, you can see prisoners walking around, inmates in the background, right? Mm-hmm. And she literally leans down and starts to whisper right into I'm telling you guys, you guys got to be careful. You got to listen to me. And I'm thinking I am listening.
Yeah,
this is insane.
Dig quietly, because this ruined my life. She said she used to be a teacher. And once she started looking into this, all because she heard somebody scream, she says that, trumped up charges and things like that. And again, we have to walk this line, this journalistic line where, yes, this stuff is scary. Is it true? Well, you can make up your own mind. The thing is always, and she even says this in the interview we do with her. She says, I don't know how to describe what I saw. I can only describe it with the words that I have in my head. And that's the problem, not just with this, but with all paranormal phenomena, which is why some people, they experience a UFO, but because of their background, it becomes a miracle. That happens a lot, and you have to read between the lines with a lot of this, because they only can talk about these experiences with what they already have because of their, social status or economic status or regional status. And so, yes, this stuff is scary, but what exactly did she experience? That's the hard part. That's the heart of what we're trying to get to. How does what she experienced match up with other people in that town? How does it match up with what we were looking into for Hellier?
She was terrified.
So scared, absolutely.
She was terrified.
She was scared for us.
She was scared for you, and it really comes across. It was such an intense moment, and there was many more. And we're going to take our break right here, and I will say it right now. It is so highly recommended, Hellier Season 2. And if you haven't seen Season 1, go and watch it. It's all good. And the links for everything are over at jimmychurchradio.com. I'm going to take a quick break. Tonight, Dana and Greg Newkirk, I almost said the new Season 2 of Hellier. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us. right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church tonight. Greg and Dana Newkirk. We're talking about Hellier Season 2. Tomorrow night, Randy Weitenheimer is going to be here. And Wednesday night, John Greenwald of the Black Vault. Thursday, of course, is another Fader night with open lines all night long. Tonight, it's Greg and Dana. And, okay, I'm going to ask you both a question. I want an answer as quickly as possible. Greg, how many times do you think in my life I have had a fallen tree across the road I am driving? Greg, how many?
Very few, I'm assuming.
Dana, how many trees have fallen across the road I am driving on in my life?
I'm going to assume very few.
How about none?
Really?
How about none? And in the last episode, right, you guys are pulling out. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. All right. So let's back up and talk about balloons. Now that we've laid that out, I want everybody to go and observe the fallen trees. Balloons. What the hell is going on here?
I wish I could tell you.
Okay, let's go to the first balloon. Right? Thankfully, no, how close was that dismissed?
Of course.
Did it take the second balloon?
It took the third balloon.
Well, the third balloon, we're going to get to the third balloon because that's the holy crap moment. Let's go to the first balloon. How did that appear in your life?
So just to give people some context, one of the things that happens, one of the loose threads in season 1 that we haven't resolved in season 1 is one of the things that this guy Terry sent me were a string of numbers, and he said, use the numbers. And the numbers appeared to be GPS coordinates. These were GPS coordinates that pointed to Brown Mountain, North Carolina, which was a place that we had been just a few months earlier. So it seemed very pointed, very obvious, because the email that these arrived in said, why did you stop when you were so close? So we assumed, okay, there's something that we're missing there. And these GPS coordinates pointed to a very specific spot in the state forest or the national forest there. And so our friend Tyler volunteered to go and check these out. And we were a bit nervous for him. He wanted to go by himself, but we thought maybe people are paying attention to us. They're watching us. So if this guy goes, no one's going to have any idea. So Tyler goes out to check these coordinates. And when he gets there, it seems, and a slight spoiler, it seems like whatever was there might have been gone for a while. Maybe we didn't follow up fast enough. But the only thing that he finds at these coordinate points is an old balloon that looks like it'd been there for a bit, and it just says happy birthday on it. And he thought it was significant enough because, again, he's in the middle of a forest, middle of nowhere in North Carolina, and right at this spot, right at these GPS coordinates, is this balloon. So he puts it in his bag and says, well, maybe that's important. I'll save it for later. That's the first balloon.
The thing is, what ends up happening with these happy birthday balloons is beyond the pale.
It's undeniable.
Undeniable. And then, I go back to my cousin Vinny. A year later, almost to the day, right?
Yeah.
To the day, what happens?
Dane and I, we run the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and the Occult, so we're crisscrossing the country all year long with this museum exhibition, and we happened to be in California, and we were doing an event at the Queen Mary. And while we were there was a friend of mine, very dear friend of mine, Alex, who we hadn't seen in years. And he said, hey, while you're in town, if you got time, let's grab a beer. So we went out to a bar and we met him. And he's the first thing he wants to know. He's a big fan of the first season of Hellier. And he's like, what happened? Did you go to the coordinates? What's there? And I was like, man, listen, we went to the coordinates and we didn't really find anything. But there was this Mylar happy birthday balloon like right there at the coordinates, and we're not sure what to make out of it. And he starts to shake, like literally shake. and say, no, 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 no. And he pulls his phone out, and I'm like, what's going on, man? He's like, no, 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 no. And he goes and he shows me this video almost to the day. He is hiking just a few weeks earlier before he meets us. He's hiking in this this national parkland
in the middle of nowhere.
And he sees this glint in the distance, and he shoots this video on his phone of this happy birthday balloon just slowly floating down right into his hand.
Oh, you're telling it incorrectly.
Go ahead.
Let me tell you from my perspective. He sees a Mylar balloon falling down, and he goes to check it out. And then he's videotaping, and he flips it over, and it's a friggin' happy birthday balloon.
It's a happy birthday.
That was like, no way. Impossible. Impossible.
He even said at that point, he said the first thing he thought was, this seems really weird and pointed. And he showed us the note in his phone where he said, ask Greg and Dana about happy birthday balloon. So he even at that point was like, there's something about this I need to ask them about. And so he became, after we told him about the first balloon, he became convinced that happened to him because he was going to see us. So there was something he needed to tell us. And we, at this point, we're like, what could this possibly mean? It's a balloon, like, what does it mean?
And then, again, this isn't a spoiler. This is just, I want everybody to go and watch the series and see how all of this plays out. Because we're just giving you the very tip of everything. There's so much backstory to all of this. But then enter Alan Greenfield. And,
yes.
Right? So now you guys, Dana, at this point, when you were sitting down with Alan and the two balloons, were you starting to piece things together that there may be something here?
I definitely, by the second balloon, I was feeling, even just sort of intuitively, like it was something that was important that we needed to be paying attention to. And I think we all at that point were starting to realize, okay, this is some sort of piece of this puzzle that we have completed at this point in time, but it felt very significant. And we were pretty sure that it was going to come back around in some way, shape, or form in the future.
Now, so you sit down with Alan, great conversation, and you can see he's a really cool dude. And you can see next to Alan, by the way, the digital clock is there.
Yes. That, I believe, was how long was that interview?
That interview was probably 5 hours.
And you can see it play out on the digital clock, by the way. So I pay attention to everything. So you sit down with Alan, and again, the subject, because we're about to talk about balloons again in a few minutes here, but this also comes up with Alan, and he says a few things during this interview. One, I'm just going to say it right now, Blue Star. And so that actually comes up, and how it plays out by the end of the series, that is a freak out in its own. Hair is standing up on my neck thinking about all of this. But you guys don't know this yet, and neither does anybody else. But the subject of balloons comes up with Alan.
Yeah, Alan is we sort of tell him what's going on with these, and Alan was a font of information. Like, he was so unbelievably valuable. And I mean, I think it's not really a spoiler that we met with him because we had to. I mean, he's the guy who wrote Secret Cipher of the Euphonauts. He was the guy who came up with the cipher. So Alan had a lot to say, but we sort of nonchalantly told him about the balloons. And it's really funny when you watch it because Carl manages to catch him during one of our breaks between our 5-hour interview where he's like, I don't know why you're not more interested in the effing balloons.
That's right.
He's like, they're so important.
He was very adamant at that point that the balloons be something that we really focus our attention on. And hearing that from Alan Greenfield, it seems as if in that moment it's time to start taking that really seriously.
Right.
You have to. And the one thing, the balloons is important, and we're going to get to the next stage of that in just a minute. But he's also reminding you guys that it seems that this is actually a journey. And that this is, he brings up Joseph Campbell. He brings up the hero's journey. He brings up the reasons why all of this is happening. And you're not necessarily supposed to understand. You guys are trying to figure things out. Right. And he's reminding, you know what, don't get ahead of yourself. Don't get ahead of your skis. You're not going to be able to figure this out right now. Continue the journey. I think it was very important for somebody like Alan to remind you guys of where you are at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that Alan lays out is, you know, you might not understand what's happening right now, but what you're going through is important. And he said, it's obvious to me that you're being led towards something. And he said something I think was very important for the rest of us because, you know, we can get very bogged down in details, in minutia.
Right.
And this idea of like, okay, we need to figure out exactly who David Christie is. We've got to find Terry Rist's real identity. We need to get addresses and names and numbers and all that kind of stuff. And Alan, you know, who's been a part of the ufological community since its heyday, he's been around. He's seen all this stuff play out. He was friends with Keel and Gray Barker and Jim Moseley and all of the legends. He said, you're paying too much attention to who carved the symbols. Follow the symbol. Follow the path. Don't pay as much attention to who put them there, because if you do, you're not going to follow the path, and that's what you need to be doing right now. And so that's the context that Greenfield gave us, was keep going. Keep going, because this is leading somewhere, and if in his opinion it was leading somewhere important. So that's what we did.
Can I ask Dana, the pragmatic one, a question?
Yes.
Dana, did you feel that Alan Greenfield was the instigator, that may have been pulling, that all of this was because he was messing with you guys? Did that cross your mind?
Yeah, I think my mind has convinced itself and unconvinced itself that Alan Greenfield has been the puppeteer, kind of pulling the strings so many times at this point.
Right.
That because he's such a fantastic trickster. He just is. He embodies that kind of trickster energy to me. So I've gone back and forth so many times. And at this point, I mean, I think I'm fairly convinced that he is not the puppeteer behind what's going on. But it has definitely crossed my mind quite a bit.
Yeah, because if he was the instigator, no harm, no foul. You guys can wipe your brow and go, whew, okay, well, that.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
But
exactly.
If he's not, you guys got some issues on the table.
That's exactly it. Right. It would be a lot more comforting to me, I think, to be able to pin it on poor Alan Greenfield, but I don't think that that's the case.
And I came away from the interview with Alan thinking the same thing, because I just thought to myself, you know what, he's just messing with the kids. Mm-hmm. Right. And I came away from that, not with that. I think he's enjoying this as much as you guys are, trying to figure this out. Greg, same thing for you. Were you thinking maybe you busted him? Right? Were you, you know what I mean?
Dude, we were convinced that we were about to meet Terry Rist.
Right.
We were scared, actually, because, you know, this Alan had been this shadow, this ghost hovering above the case ever since it began. And there were a lot of people who came out of the woodwork to say, you guys are doing a ritual for Alan Greenfield. You know, he can't do this type of ritual anymore. He's using you guys to do a hyper sigil or whatever. And we thought, you know, the night we drove down to Atlanta, we're sitting in that hotel room and we were just psyching ourselves up because we thought we were going to meet this black magician and he was going to be wearing his like creepy black suit. And we were going to find out all along this was Terry Rist. And then we meet this guy who's just like super funny, goofy dude wearing a Hawaiian t-shirt who's like, oh, God, that's nonsense. Of course it's not me. And he's like, here, I want to help. This is great. I think you're doing important work. Let me help you. And we walked away going, oh, there's no way. There's no way this is him.
Well, see, and there's a reason why that was so intense for the viewer. Because when we bring in things like rituals and Aleister Crowley, and the rituals, Aleister and those around him spend their life completing one ritual. right?
Yeah,
this is not
absolutely.
something, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, their entire lives are dedicated to them. So yeah, you're right. That is an incredibly intense kind of person to kind of come into communication with.
yeah, and Crowley spoke about this a lot in that you don't just pick up a book and read the ritual and do it in a couple hours and then move on in your ascension. Right? That's not how it happens.
No, you have to live it.
You have to live it. It's intense, and there's a lot to know. And you have to do previous rituals to complete, and to move on. Right. And so, but that would say to the viewer that maybe you are one of these really long rituals that somebody like Greenfield would have to complete for him to proceed to the next stage. And that maybe you are a ritual, and that's why it's taking so many years to complete. And I'm not going out on a limb here. It's still possible, right?
Oh, sure. Anything's
Absolutely,
possible.
yeah.
I mean, where Hellier is left is nothing but possibilities. And I'm more convinced now than I ever have been that we are doing a ritual, whether it's an initiation ritual or whatever. I'm more convinced now that is exactly what we're doing because of how much our lives have been changed and because how much the viewers' lives are being changed. I think it could very well be an initiation for the viewer as much as it is for us.
Because after this interview with Alan, just before, you can't imagine this getting any stranger or any more positive synchronicities. I mean, in real time, you guys jump in the car, head out, and encounter, I'll just say it, you encounter a tree falling across the road. You stop the car, and just go ahead. What's the big reveal? What the hell happened?
After we have this interview with Greenfield, which goes to about 4 or 5 in the morning, where Greenfield is harping on about balloons and the significance of them, the significance of Sirius, the planet Sirius, which is a blue star. We are on our way home less than 12 hours later. We're on our way home, and I say, you know what? We're going to be going to Somerset. It's a place we're going to go for this case. Let's just drive through. It's half an hour out of our way so I can show you guys, because Tyler and I had already gone and done recon there. So we're driving down this dirt road, one lane, middle of nowhere, no way to back up, where a lot of this stuff had allegedly taken place, a lot of the scary stuff from Somerset. And we get to a point and there's a tree laying over the road. And I thought, oh, this is an ambush. And we had to you kind of cautiously got out of the car. Well, went to go and see how easy it would be to move this tree because there was no backing up. And at the base of this tree is a balloon that is a blue star.
Now, at this point, as a viewer, you're thinking, this is planted. All right, this can't be,
Right.
this is not real. But it was Carl that's in the front seat.
Carl is in the passenger seat.
He's in the back. Who's in the back?
Connor.
I just want you to say it out loud. Who's in the back?
Connor Randall.
Poor Connor ain't getting out of the car. Connor's the smartest guy in this scene, if you ask me. I'm not getting out of the car. And
we actually sat there for a good 5-10 minutes deciding what to do. And what's interesting is you notice that entire scene is shot on an iPhone because we didn't have any of the camera equipment out. We were not prepared for this at all. And I mean, there it was, clear as day. I see this glinting at the base of the tree, and I pull it out. It's a balloon, and it didn't even strike me. The blue star thing didn't even strike us until later.
Right.
The significance of that, I was just like, "Oh, it's another damn balloon."
You know, if it would have said "Happy Birthday," I would have been cool
over
with that. Yeah, I would have been fine with that. But it was a blue star. We're going to leave that part for everybody to go and see from the series how that plays out. But this is the thing. Connor in the back seat with his iPhone yelling out the window. So what's going on, man?
Yeah, I know, right?
You guys see anything?
I eventually did coax Connor out to help me move the tree because I couldn't do it by myself. We were terrified. I mean, we were in a place that was hostile territory, and I mean, I was expecting people to jump up out of the weeds at any time and take us out, considering some of the stories we'd heard about this place.
Now, the third balloon, the shock for the viewers, one thing, because it was a pretty intense scene. As you guys are driving away and Carl unfolds the balloon, you know, and he kind of takes a look at it, you guys are driving away. What's going through your mind, Greg?
How did this become a thing? You know, like the first season, anyone who sees the first season knows like we've got a psychically projected tin can was the thing that we got. And so now it's balloons. So we're literally at this point, it's just like, why is the universe sending us garbage? We're just collecting garbage. And I think that there's almost a weird beauty in that too. Because, you know, that's where some of the signs from the universe are being given, is through this stuff that most people wouldn't pay attention to, but for us was so deeply meaningful. And then there's this other weird element where, you know, as we go through season 2, it starts to look like a lot of the stuff is connected to the old tales of the Fae and the Fair Folk. You know, the Somerset itself is a place that's intrinsically tied to the history and legends of the Fae. Well, there was always the story about how the Fae would give you they'd give you garbage, and if you didn't throw it away, once you were out of that land, it would turn to gold. And really, that's sort of what the story of Hellier has turned into for us, is gold. Because yes, it's crazy, it's outlandish, we don't really know what's going on, but at the same time, we're bringing attention to a lot of stuff that most people ignore, and it's changing a lot of people's lives. So there's a weird allegorical thing happening there with the fact that the universe is giving us trash to send messages. I wanted to ask you, when we come back, we're going to talk about Pan, because that's the other, for me, one of the things that really got fascinating but twisted too as well. And we'll come back to that. But how many, I mean, you guys obviously are following up on one clue and one synchronicity after another. How many were left on the table still? I mean, because you only have so much time in the day.
There's still a lot that we can follow up on, and I mean there's a lot that have kind of grown and progressed that we can kind of continue investigating and continue kind of digging into. So there's a lot that's still remaining that definitely will require our attention for sure. I'd
say people have seen maybe 50% of the stuff that happened. Yeah.
And how comfortable are you going and investigating the twisted aspects of this? And I'm talking about sexual rituals and underground secret society things that are possibly going on out there. Is that something that you're comfortable in diving into, or are you going to back off?
No, of course we're not comfortable diving into it. I mean, I don't think we have much of a choice in anything that we do anymore. I think that stuff we've been pushed through this entire case. There's some other force pushing us to do this stuff. So we just go where we're led to find what we need to find. And I don't know if we have a choice.
It's like I said, it's just a creepy, it's one of those subjects that, and I don't care if you're talking about, you know, Rosemary's Baby or Eyes Wide Shut, or, you know, it's a subject that nobody is comfortable with. But here you are presented with these breadcrumbs pushing you in this direction, and you're not in control of it.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you know, it's a very weird feeling knowing that this is happening in this small community too. That this is like, for the most part, you've been able to validate a lot of what these people are telling you, and you know that it's existing underneath this kind of image of this small town in Kentucky, that there's this kind of darkness laying right under the surface, and that is it's a feeling that stays with you. And when you're in those spaces, if you have the ability to kind of feel your environment, they feel very oppressive and very scary.
Let's take our break right here. Our guests tonight, Greg and Dana Newkirk. We're talking about Hellier Season 2. All the links for Hellier are up in Twitter right now, and you can also go to hellier.tv, and the links for that are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Just click and go. and check it out after the show tonight. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Greg and Dana Newkirk. We're talking about Hellier 2. Season 2 of Hellier. It's out now. It's on Amazon. If you have Amazon, it's free. Just click and binge. That's what you want to do. I want a couple of quick questions about the series for me. We talked about the production value and the way it's shot. The graphics are incredible. But the music is so central, and the soundscapes. Is it Carl that is responsible for all of that scenic painting?
Actually, it is. It's at Anthony Sistone. Anthony Sistone did the original score for the series. Carl did a lot of the ambient music, but the actual score itself was done by Anthony, and it's unbelievable. It's so unbelievably great.
I always kind of feel like the soundtrack and the score sort of feels like the other character, the other person that's investigating with us, because you're right, it just feels like it's a part of it. It just
my memories now have the soundtrack.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys, okay, let me ask you this. There's in episode 10 when the tones are being played and everybody is physically affected. Greg, you've got your head in your hands at one point during that. And which apparently went on for 30 minutes. Obviously, it's cut back for the series, for the episode. Right. But why did you feel that you were affected in such a way?
Most of that, honestly, was sort of recovering from the way I felt after the invocation. It was something that was extremely overpowering. And I'd never experienced anything like it before. And then that coupled with the tones, which sort of made everyone in the group nauseous. There was just something strange and otherworldly about them. It was just a lot to handle, both of those things at once.
Dana, I was just going to ask you, whose idea was it for the tones?
The tones actually came about because of a really bizarre Estes method session that we had done, where we were picking up on the sound of these tones, and so it became a really interesting idea to kind of like, what would happen if we played them in the caves? What would happen if we overlaid them? What would happen if we utilize them for something like this? So they really became like a focal point of what we were doing in the cave specifically.
Because you were affected too. You said, I feel nauseous.
Oh yeah, I felt very nauseous. I felt very uneasy, very kind of confused almost, like I was underwater. And it definitely, it wasn't, I think in because we did play it for like a solid chunk of time. In the beginning, I wondered if it wasn't just sort of getting used to the acoustics of the space that we were in and having this really weird sound being projected in there, but it was consistent. It was a nauseous feeling. It was confusion and kind of very, very out of it is probably the best way to describe it. And some of the more logical, kind of grounded people, like Connor, for instance, Connor was kind of feeling weird, and everyone just had a very strange, uneasy feeling while they were being played. Now, tell me the truth. Did Greg yak? He didn't, surprisingly. I thought he was going to. That whole section of that episode kind of takes its toll on Greg, but I was pretty much convinced that the bread that we were breaking at that point in time was going to end up back on the cave floor at some point in time. I thought Greg departed to yak, and Greg. He probably could have. He maybe just kept it from the rest of us. Yeah, I mean, Greg, were you close? That's the way it came across.
I wasn't so much nauseous as I was just I was shaking. I was actually shaking, and it was like a rush of adrenaline, and it's really hard to describe.
That was an intense scene, man. That was a very intense scene. It was Tyler, wasn't it, that kind of brought you guys back to your senses? I hope he's listening right now.
Oh, I'm sure he is. Hi, Tyler.
That was such a great moment because he was the perfect person in that moment to break the vibe that we were stuck in and to remind us what we were supposed to be doing. And it was like, honestly, it was like getting hit with a sack of bricks. I just was like, wait, he's right. He's absolutely right. Like it was so strange that none of us had come to that conclusion, but it was just this light bulb moment, and it was perfect.
Yeah, he was rah team. After that, I went outside and cut the grass.
Nice.
I mean, okay, all right. Let's. I'm being serious too, Tyler. That was a good speech. That was a really good speech. And you could tell he was also as stressed out as everybody else was. And he's like, you know what? I'm not going to do this. You know, that was really strong.
It's the thing about Hellier is it's a journey, an individual journey for each and every one of us, and it's an individual journey for the viewers too. And at that moment, you had a bunch of people from very different belief systems doing something that they may not have really anticipated or agreed with, for results that maybe they didn't anticipate. And Tyler really, in that moment, when we were all feeling, ultimate frustration, really reminded us that what we're doing is beautiful and the journey is beautiful, and brought us all back to a really good headspace where we might have walked out of that cave a lot more frustrated if he hadn't been there.
Now, I want to talk about Pan and the synchronicities that weave their way in and out of Hellier and season 2 are pretty extraordinary. And Pan, especially by the end of the series, I was really I was stressed out. I was stressed out because even for you guys, I remember watching Dana as this Pan stuff started to show itself. I was getting pretty uncomfortable with that. Now, it's another element that isn't related to everything else that has been happening, but then you find out that it actually is.
Yeah.
Right? And Greg, did you know about Pan before all of this showed itself?
I mean, I don't think any more than most other people, but it became pretty clear to us. I mean, if you watch the climax of season 1, you'll notice that what's happening in that tunnel, we start to get this idea that we're talking to something old. We're somehow communicating with something old that feels like it's asleep, and maybe it's just waking up. And we didn't really know. It's funny, we even had conversations and arguments about whether to even include that because it seems so weird and out of left field. But we felt so strongly about that, we kept it in. And now I'm really glad we did, because what everything seems to point to is that there is some greater intelligence that has been guiding this group of people to raise awareness about its existence. And there's a lot of ways that we come to this conclusion, some very, again, undeniable ways we come to this conclusion. And you can call it, Pan was a Greek god. He was the Greek god of caves. He was the Greek god of the wilderness, of liminal places. But we just use that in a way where it's like, that's just one of the masks that the phenomena wears. And there have been tons of different masks this phenomena wears. And we're just calling it Pan because Pan stands for everything. And it seems like that's sort of this intelligence that's there, this intelligence that has to do with everything. And, Pan was the only Greek god that was pronounced dead. And so it seems like what's happening now, and I think other people are experiencing this too, is Pan, whoever or whatever it is starting to wake up, and we're just sort of on the edge of that.
And how about you, Dana? Throughout your life and what you do with magic, was Pan always there? Did you know the history of Pan?
Yeah, probably a little bit more than Greg, maybe the rest of the group at that point in time, just because Pan is such a figure throughout the pagan community, and being a solitary folk magic practitioner and a hedge witch, I work a lot with nature, and the wilds, and I spend a lot of time in nature, and that's really a huge aspect of my spirituality. So Pan is definitely a figure, he's an archetype of the wilds, and I was pretty comfortable with the concept of Pan, but then, having Greg make all of these massive connections, it blew it, up even more in my mind. And so it was a really fascinating thing to see this archetype or this deity that I had always kind of felt very comfortable with. Seeing that with a whole new set of eyes was really fascinating.
And I want to talk about Connor one more time.
Poor Connor.
Connor, bless your heart, man. When these numbers were first sent to you, and I still believe, and this isn't a spoiler, I still believe that the coordinate aspect of it is part of it. I do believe that those are coordinates. But conveniently enough, that sequence of numbers is a chosen sequence that represents both coordinates and a few other things. But it took Connor, we're not going to spoil anything here, but it took Connor's due diligence, him and his girlfriend, to take a second look at these. And EL came into play too as well. So let's talk about that moment when Connor lays this out. Did you have any idea where he was about to lead you with this reveal?
It was interesting. Greg and I will probably have different answers for this, and it's not evident in the episode just because we don't talk about it. But Connor came to me when he finally came to this revelation and this conclusion a few days before he brought that information to the rest of the team, because there was a lot of confusion for him because he doesn't have any kind of a background in anything that has to do with magic or witchcraft or the occult or anything like that. So he really wanted my opinion. And so for me, I was literally knocked off my feet. I couldn't.
Dana was insufferable. I'm just going to jump in and say Dana was insufferable because she's like, Connor's going to call me. I need to have the room to myself. And I'm like, wait, what? What's going on?
Connor and I had lots of secret meetings where we sat down and discussed a lot of it before it was actually brought to the rest of the team.
And Dana would just pace through the house going, oh my God, oh man, you're going to lose your mind. You're going to lose your mind. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, I can't tell you yet. Connor's going to tell everybody in Detroit. And I had to deal with this for days of her like talking to Connor, talking to John Tenney, discussing these numbers and what they ultimately meant without knowing. So I didn't have any idea. And Dana was just, you could tell there was a weight on her shoulders.
Well, you could see, you know what's really funny is she's sitting there in Detroit. She knows, right?
Yeah.
And she's keeping her mouth. You could tell she's biting her lip. And she's just allowing Connor and John Tenney because you have to explain this slowly. You can't just go, this is what it is and here's the end. You've got to explain, how you get from point A to point B with the number sequence. And she behaves, right?
It was a big, important moment. And Connor had spent so long at this point in time just obsessing over these numbers and trying to figure out what they meant and what to do with them. And so I was just glad to have been someone that he came to when he finally did come to his conclusion that he came to kind of bounce ideas off of, to see if I thought that the conclusion that he had come to was correct. And so the first thing I did was I ran out and bought a bunch of different books that kind of the team could jump directly into. So if you see it in that moment, I'm kind of like Connor's emotional support person, and I'm just like handing him books just every time he gets to another aspect in the sequence. I'm like, here's another book, give them this book. And so I did my best to let Connor explain it because he did it so masterfully.
And now it's this for me at that moment. It wasn't the number sequence. Of course it was. but it wasn't that. And it wasn't the Brown Mountain logistics of it. But it was that. But it's 418, it's 31, it's 93, it's 39, and a whole list of other things all piled into one in one number sequence. That's when you have to say this is beyond coincidence. This is ridiculous. And as the viewer, you have to sit back and go, this is crazy. And again, all of that moment in Detroit goes back to the original email when you guys were kids as ghost hunters. What a journey. That's an incredible, powerful moment in Detroit.
Yeah, hidden in plain sight. And I mean, I think that's the interesting thing about what we're showing with that, that ultimate moment in that last episode is it doesn't matter how many dead ends you get to. If you are put on a path, if you are part of a call, you will get to where you're supposed to go, and the universe will provide you with the right path and constantly tell you to keep going. If there's anything that we have gotten out of this case over the last 2 years in particular, it has been constant messages, whether it is a psychic image of a tin can that comes true, whether it is balloons at coordinate points. There are messages that are saying keep going because this is leading somewhere important. And that's really what that last episode of Hellier 2 is about, is no matter what you're doing, as long as you're making movement, as long as there's momentum, the universe will push you in the direction you're supposed to go.
Well, just like the ending of season 1, at the end of season 2, although there were so many things that were resolved, but now you are presented with a continuation, aren't you?
Yeah. I think what we're at, where we land at the end of season 2, is basically going, this is all the things that we learned that we did not have access to 2 years ago. We have a whole box of tools at our disposal that are frankly brand new, that people have not been using for paranormal research. And we can go and we can look at maps, and we can use particular power names, and we can use things like the Estes method and hypnotism and the God helmet. We can use these different tools that we didn't have in order to close in even closer on the phenomena going forward. And that really feels like what this entire journey has been about, has been providing us with the tools that we need to break through to the next chapter.
And Dana, how do you feel about that? Because during this scene in Detroit, where maybe you were hoping that you guys are going to wind this thing down, you guys can't. Now you are presented with, and I'm not going to say what went down in that room, but there is 2 seasons of Hellier that was just dropped in your lap that you're going to have to go and film. Are you ready for this?
I think it's so hard. I think I know that we have to, and I know that we will have to get there. And for me, it's going to be a matter of understanding what it is exactly that we need to be doing at that point, if that makes sense. And for people who've seen Hellier and that will see it, maybe that will make more sense. But it's something I know we will have to do. And I know that in order to do that, we will have to work our way towards it and do it the proper way, because the last thing that any of us, I think, would ever want to do would be to do it improperly. So it's going to be a pretty lengthy process. And I think once we've all had a nice emotional break, maybe. I mean, however long the phenomena will let us chill out is probably the best answer.
Well, I can, especially after season 1, where if I asked you, can things get any crazier?
Yeah,
right?
Right.
And here we have season 2. Can things get crazier than what you and the audience just went through in season 2? Is that possible?
I'll tell you this. We we almost feel like there's a checkpoint in what we're doing. We always joke that the extra producer is the phenomena, and we always talk about these writers, that exist somewhere in the ether. Maybe they're the third order. I don't know. That are pushing us along this path. It is so ironic the way that all of this works, because not 5 hours after Hellier 2 premiered, we received a message that contains probably the biggest lead that we have had yet. So it's funny how that works, man, because it can get crazier, and it's going to.
I'm going to ask you now, the both of you, is it okay that we can do some overtime? There's two things that we haven't discussed tonight that are going to be fun.
I'm in.
Okay. All right. Because we got to talk about Carl and the reclining chair.
Oh, Lord.
Okay. Carl just squirmed right now. Carl, we are going to talk about that. And we have to talk about the regression that happened, and which is very important on so many different fundamental levels. And I want to actually come back and talk about that. But before we do, will you guys sell out? And what I mean by that is this, right? You've got two very successful series underneath you right now and behind you. Right now, the world is just opened up in front of you. You've got so much more, but with that, comes the contracts or the big money talking guy or girl, and says, "Okay, guys, let's do this. We believe in you. You're superstars. Everybody, and they're going to tell you everything that you want to hear."
Right.
Are you going to turn all of that down?
We're very used to that by now, and we've turned it down a lot. We turned it down for season 1. Obviously, listen, I would love to partner with a network to do another season of Hellier or another project. But the fact of the matter is they would have to work with us. They would have to give us creative control. There have been situations where we've talked about Hellier on a network and they don't even want to give us creative credit, even though we've literally made a television show ourselves. We were on Amazon Prime's, popular television list through the entire launch, trending TV. And we made it with 5-6 people, 12 at the most when you count soundtrack and things like that. So we've proven we can do this on our own, and we can make something compelling on our own. And we would gladly do that with the help of a network, because that would mean we'd actually get paid. We could pay our bills. We could eat. We could buy groceries. Because right now, Hellier is just a labor of love that we really don't make any money off of. But the only way we would do that is if we were comfortable that we would have the creative control to do what we're going to do, and feel proud of what we're making.
Yeah, I think I think I could probably speak for everyone, but I think that we definitely would never do anything to the detriment of the project. The project always comes first, and that's
the project and our personalities and our reputations. That's important to us,
and that's rare today. And I just wanted to give you guys the opportunity to say all of that, to state your position, because hey, it's money. Everybody's got their price. Right?
Oh yeah, and listen, I love paranormal television.
Right.
We appear on it regularly. We have friends who have shows that we really like and respect, and we love it. We love it all. But at the same time, we know that there's only so much control that you're given. And it works differently. You have to work within the box of television when you do this stuff. Everything has to be nice and tight, and you get 3 acts, and that's how you have to tell your story every week. Hellier is very clearly, to anyone who watches it, it's not that kind of thing, and it just will not fit in that type of box, because it's something that's continuous and it's ongoing, and we don't know what we're going to find when we do it. So if a network wanted to work with us to do another season, we would be open to it if they were willing to get weird with it. And I don't know too many that would be.
Just don't sell out. Don't sell out.
We're not.
I don't think we would ever let each other sell out either.
That's true. We give each other a lot of trouble.
But a new house and all of the food that Dana could shop for.
Oh my God.
Right.
Yeah,
it's
nice. But
it's got its
not
appeal.
As nice as integrity.
That's it. Let's take our break right here. Greg and Dana Newkirk, we're talking about Hellier Season 2. Now, when we come back, all right, there is Carl and the recliner. We're going to talk about that. And there is a regression session that happens in this series that is very, very important. We're going to talk about all of that, too. It's strong stuff. But we're going to have fun when we come back. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, Greg and Dana Newkirk. When we come back, stay with us. Welcome back, Fade to Black. Greg and Dana Newkirk tonight talking about Hellier 2. The links for Hellier and Hellier 2 are over at jimmychurchradio.com. You can just click. You need to go and watch it from beginning to end. And I want to remind everybody, tomorrow night, Randy Weitenheimer is going to be here. Wednesday night, John Greenwald. Thursday night, of course, is another Fader night with open lines all night long. And now back to Greg and Dana. We're into overtime now, and thank you for doing that. Is a very important part of Hellier is 2 specific episodes where you guys go into regression therapy and some hypnosis. And this is always controversial in our community. And are you prepared for, and I'm sure you've already gotten some of it, the backlash of it and what regression therapy is, both the positive side and the negative side of it. And you guys present both in Hellier 2. Are you prepared for that?
Yeah, I mean, the purpose of what we did with the hypnosis experiment, the alien abduction experiment, was it originated because we wanted to show how easy it was to put one of these ideas in someone's head. So what we're doing isn't technically a regression so much as almost it's almost like what they do in Inception. The idea came to us in 2012. We were shooting a project where we wanted to see if we could get abducted by aliens. So we tried to do it the old-fashioned way, and wouldn't you know it, it didn't work. So I called a friend of mine who is a hypnotist, Lonnie Scott, and I said, listen, I have this crazy idea. I want to run it by you. Maybe you're the man to do it. And I said, do you think you can put the idea, the experience of an alien abduction in one of our heads via hypnosis, and then we can bring that person back and interview them and see what it was like and see how it matches up to some of the most famous abduction cases? And he said, I can do it, but there's no way in hell I'm going to. He's like, that's super unethical. And I said, well, it's not. We're all signed up for it. We all know the risks. Let's try it. As far as I know, this hasn't been done before. And he thought about it, and eventually he got back and said, okay, I'll do it. I'm only going to do it for one of you, and I need you to sign some paperwork. I can do it. I can take one person. I can put the idea in there, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it out. And what we thought was going to be a very funny experience where one of our friends was going to get taken aboard a spaceship and probed in the butt turned into something much, much scarier that had much wider implications for the abduction experience than any of us anticipated. It really shook a lot of us to our core for a long time. And when we decided to try a version of that again in season 2, we approached it much more delicately because, there's a couple different ideas of what might have actually happened when we did that first regression in 2012. Either this person already had an experience and we brought it out of them. We gave them a false experience that was very believable. Or what I'm more inclined to believe is that we flipped a switch on some other plane of existence and gave him a 4-day-long experience where we drew whatever these entities were to him, and he actually went through this.
All three suck.
Yes, that's true.
Very true.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
In some ways, I mean, you feel there's empathy where you're just like, oh man, oh whoa, right? Because you just don't know.
I think that's probably why the second attempt is so different. It's so it's much more fine tuned at that point. Just because we didn't want it to be a negative experience. We wanted it to be not necessarily that it had to be positive, but we wanted it to yield something that we could use. So it
yield more than a mental breakdown.
Yeah, exactly.
Which was about the extent of the first one.
Right. Now, and what this would suggest, certainly to the skeptics out there when it comes to this approach inside of ufology, which is regression and missing time and trying to figure out what may or may not have happened, is that some of the skeptics are going to say, see, regression, it's implanting these. That right. These experiences aren't real. And this is proof of it here because Greg and Dana just did it, and now it's on film. Now you're going to have all of the regression professionals out there step forward and say, this is giving us a bad name.
I mean, that may be true, but at the same time, we're doing actual experiments here, and we don't exactly know the outcome of them when we do them. That first experience, that first hypnosis session, you'll notice if you really watch that carefully, there were not many leading questions in there. There weren't many leading phrases. The only real leading phrase was you see a light in the sky and you know that it's in a shape you know can't exist and you're going to be taken. And that's it. And Jason, the subject, he fills in all those blanks, and it's nothing like you would expect it to be. Everything's a little different.
Yeah, and it's not what you would expect it to be, even just based off of his personality, which is what I think is really interesting. Jason is like a very positive, goofy, funny person. Mm-hmm. And, we kind of at that moment thought, okay, well, this is going to be like a silly experience. So we were not anticipating the experience that he had.
It was terrifying.
It's interesting.
It's horrible. Yeah, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. Mm-hmm. And the end result, again, everybody just you have to go and watch it and appreciate it for what it is. But the end result, he's freaked out. Right?
Yeah, we interviewed him before the experiment, and the reason he was even chosen, because it was in the air. It could have been any of us. Mm-hmm. The reason he was chosen was for two reasons. One, he did not believe in hypnosis. He didn't think it worked. And two, he didn't believe in extraterrestrials. He didn't believe that they were visiting us in any meaningful capacity. So the hypnotist, Lonnie, said, then you're the perfect person for me to prove this point. And he had this experience. He was only under hypnosis for about half an hour, but he had experienced 4 days worth of memories that were as real as any memories you and I make every single day. And he began to seriously believe that he had been abducted by aliens. He told us at one point, if you hadn't told me, and I did not know for a fact that this was an experiment, I would go to the grave believing that I had been abducted by aliens and they had done all these torturous things to me.
Now, I want to move on to Carl, but let me say this about Jason. The way that Lonnie... I thought I was going to go under, right, watching that scene.
He has such a soothing voice.
Soothing voice, and he's holding up his hand, or he says, "Now, do you see the what does he say? You see the lines in your hand?" At that point, Jason's gone, right? Gone.
It happened so fast. We thought he was faking it.
I thought he was faking.
To cry.
Yes. It was. Yeah. It's an incredible scene, and the level of detail that came out. But it was after what he was seeing, who he was seeing, and what was going on. It was really trippy to see that, but it was afterwards. He believes that we're being visited. He believes in UFOs. He believes in hypnosis.
Oh, yeah, it fundamentally changed his feelings on the subject matter, and he doesn't even realize it.
I don't even think. Let me ask you this. I do want to move on to Carl before we run out of time here, but he now. I mean, I want your take on this. He is firmly grounded in his belief system now. Right?
Oh, yeah.
There's no question about any of this.
No, he is 100% convinced that, like again, he had mentioned that had we not filmed it and been there, he would be 100% convinced that he was an experiencer.
And now he believes that aliens are real and that they are visiting us and they are abducting us 100%.
And the before and after, because before, happy-go-lucky, eyes are lit up. Right? Afterwards, You're talking to him about this. He's got a very serious look on his face, and his eyes are different.
Well, even the idea of talking about the experiment, he doesn't remember any of it now. You know, he worked with Lonnie a lot afterwards, just sort of trying to erase that because they were so traumatizing. Even the discussion of it brings him nervousness.
Yes, you can see it.
Anxiety. Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it. Now, let's talk about Carl. Let's talk about Carl. The way he lays in the recliner with his arms on his and he's so comfortable and so in the zone. Did Carl believe in hypnosis before this?
I don't know that he didn't believe, but he didn't think he could be hypnotized.
Yeah, he was very skeptical, I think, if I remember correctly, that maybe it wouldn't work.
Which ironically is part of the reason why he was the perfect person to do this experiment.
And he went deep.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was really fascinating to watch because we tried to do the experiment a bit differently. So the idea behind doing this again, it seemed like at the time we were really supposed to try this again. That might have been one of the things Terry was trying to tell us to do. But we wanted to get actionable information from this experiment that shows we are going somewhere else and getting information that is usable that we weren't aware of at the time. So the idea was we want to send someone to some other place, wherever that is, whether that's in our own mind, whether that's some outer place, to meet an extraterrestrial entity who can give us information that we were not aware of that is actionable. That was the purpose of doing this experiment the way we did again. And Carl did that. He basically predicted the future. It's unbelievable.
To a T.
And you know what's okay, I don't know how Carl managed to go back and have to watch all of that and edit it. Right?
He did not like it.
No, man, no. There's no way he could, but he has to. He's the director. But that's not what's most precious about that scene. What's most precious is you guys.
Yeah,
you
responding.
guys responding. You guys are all taping. Dana, you've got your cell phone out too, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
We wanted it from every angle we possibly could get it.
And so what we get is every angle of you guys looking at each other, going, "Holy crap!"
I mean, the things that happened in Carl's session, the things that he brings out, and the entities that he meets are so shocking. There's no way we weren't going to look at each other and just like mouth the words like, what the F is going on?
I thought for sure you guys were going to blow the session. I was waiting for that. Somebody was going to say something. Somebody was going to freak out. Somebody was going to snap Carl out of it. It was that intense. I don't know how you guys kept it, so low key.
It took, I think, all of Tyler's willpower not to literally explode into actual fireworks because he was so excited about what was happening.
It was one of the great moments. Now, after, and I'm serious too, I really loved that entire scene. Sorry, Carl. Somebody had to do it, man. But afterwards, did Carl remember? Certainly, it was discussed in the days and weeks after. Did Carl remember everything that he was saying?
I think he had a memory of it. One of the details that I think is really interesting is he was very agitated afterwards. Like he had to kind of like spend some time alone because he was really like just angry and kind of frustrated about it. But I think I do think that he had memories of all of it, and I think that's why he was frustrated, because he didn't know why they were important at the time.
And I think there's a part of it too where it was a very personal thing, and to know that not only do you have, 4 of your closest friends around getting a peek into your subconscious, but you have cameras. And this is going to be shown to hundreds of thousands of people. That can be a really agitating and frustrating thing. And I think because of that, he has a pretty good memory of the stuff that was happening. And the way that the hypnosis session was structured was so much different than the first one, where it wasn't supposed to be, it wasn't like you weren't getting abducted by aliens. They weren't taking you against your will. You were there to meet an extra normal, extraterrestrial entity that was going to give you information pertinent to the case. So I think because of those differences, it was much easier for him to remember what happened.
Would Carl do it again?
I think he probably would. I think having had the experience and then what happened after the experience, which validated a lot of his what he was kind of bringing back for us, I can imagine he probably would do it again. But I don't think he'd necessarily throw his hand up.
he might not volunteer. He might be pushed into it.
And this is, I think, the most important thing to ask. How did it change Carl? Is he okay with regression and hypnosis and this kind of thing going on? Where before, skeptic, and I am too, by the way, right? But he was clearly changed. And so is he on the other side of the fence?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, hypnosis is never what you expect it's going to be when it happens to you. Everybody has the Hollywood version of what hypnosis is like. And so when it happens to you, you kind of have to cope with the fact that it's not as over the top as you think. A lot of it's more akin to guided meditation. And I think that was a bit of a hurdle for him to understand that it wasn't like, it's not actually sleep. That's a misnomer. That whole like sleep deeper. What you're actually doing is you're going into a heightened state of awareness, which is the fascinating thing. You're actually open to more information than you normally are. So I think he definitely has a more of an appreciation for hypnosis, especially its use in paranormal research, for sure.
Well, and see, you're right about this, that Carl, this is why I don't want to do any regression therapy. I have questions about certain things that have happened to me, but my mindset is I'm just going to leave them where they are, right? I don't want to know. And
they might be buried for a reason.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair.
And that's where I'm at. And so for Carl to go through this, you're naked. Right?
Yes.
You are exposed, and look, it's not that your friends are going to see this at some party later. The
whole world
is out there now. And I'm sure that he's squirming. He's probably squirming right now that we are even talking about this.
Well, fun fact, Connor actually had a session too.
Oh, I didn't know.
His was so personal, we cut it out.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was just really uncomfortable.
Like, what was cut out?
I mean, he had an entire session where Carl went and then Connor went. We just figured, we have Lonnie here. Let's maximize our usage. So Connor went as well, and he got a lot of really interesting information. But the types of things that were in his session and the things that he experienced were much more personal to his personality, and he was very uncomfortable with those things, the innermost parts of his personality being presented to the world. So we didn't include it.
Now, did you two have a session?
No. We there's actually a discussion in that episode, which is really funny because it's us choosing who should go. And Dana and I and Tyler, we all agreed that we're too nuts. Like, we have too much weird stuff in our brains. And Connor and Carl were the two. Anyone who watches Hellier can see they're the two most objective people.
Right.
Carl is the eyes of the audience for all intents and purposes. So him being the most objective person really makes him the perfect person to go, because the audience will trust his experience more than us, who are inundated with insane ideas in our brains all day long. Who knows what our subconscious would conjure up? Carl was the perfect person to go, and that was a big discussion.
Now, as we wind this down, and thank you, this is what a great show tonight. But what have you learned? And I'm going to throw this to Dana first. Dana, is there another dimension out there that is beyond our physical world that we walk in every single day that needs to be explored? That does this now exist for you?
Yes, I absolutely do believe that. I think that, I think maybe I've always believed that, and it's been something that I've never not been comfortable with believing in. But at this point in time, I feel as if now there's evidence, at least in my eyes, for the existence of that. And so, yes, I do. I 100% believe that.
Greg?
Oh, 100%, especially, now. I think part of what we're doing with Hellier is we are re-enchanting the world. I think that's the purpose of what we're doing. I think we were called by the phenomena not just to try and solve this mystery, but to present this project to the world in such a way that they understand, yes, there is something else out there. And yes, it's calling to us. It's calling to them. Everyone. It's calling to you. It's calling to everybody. If you just take the time to listen and see the synchronicities in your life and the little hints that there's a journey, and it's up to you to take that journey. And so I think that's what we're doing with Hellier is we're re-enchanting the world and getting more people interested in the fact that there is an unseen world out there that's just waiting for us to find it.
Well, the members of our community that embrace this and are always out there seeking knowledge and trying to move forward with this, that's one thing. But that may not be the real audience that needs to see this series. It should be those that are in absolute denial.
And that's part of the work that we do. One of the things that we're always trying to do is we're trying to work outside of the community that we're in. And I think with Hellier, we've done a good job of that because there's a little bit of everything for whoever. There's the true crime aspect to it. There's the catfish aspect to it. There's the travelogue aspect. And I think particularly with season 2, there's been so much discussion about it, particularly online, and the fact that this scrappy little project by half a dozen people was in trending television next to projects that cost millions and millions of dollars to make. I think that's the phenomena at work. That's the phenomena reaching out to the general public and saying, pay attention. There's something here. There's something calling you. Follow this path.
That you just brought up one of the great questions about this, because the paranormal aspect of this, ETs, little green dudes and the goblins, that's all one thing. But then we have the true crime aspect of this, where this is pushing into the legal areas here, real detective work. Can that get you into trouble?
Well, yeah, of course. And we're very careful about that. I mean, there's so much stuff left on the cutting room floor of season 2, because not only were we worried about the legal ramifications of it, but we were worried about the personal ramifications of putting this type of stuff out into the world. And, who knows whose radar we were going to pop up on. I think the interesting thing about Hellier is the scary stuff isn't the goblins. It's the people.
That's right.
The people are the scariest part of Hellier.
And then you have Dana. Dana is looking at you like, you're supposed to be my protector, dude. Right? You got me into a lot of trouble here. We got people, right? Dana, does this concern you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a handful of moments in this season where you can hear how scared I am. You can see how scared I am. And we live in Cincinnati, which is very close to a lot of these places. And so, potentially having people who maybe aren't awesome people living so close to us is definitely something that has come up many, many times. And even just with the rest of the group, it's a matter of understanding that the human element is dangerous, and we need to take that into consideration and always be very careful when we're investigating these kind of places.
Let's put it this way. Dana is Canadian. We're bleeding heart liberals. And Dana says, you need to buy a gun.
Yeah, that's right. See, I was just going to say, no matter what, I can imagine the argument, right? Dana going, this is all your fault. And you can come back with, hey, we were in this together.
It's not my fault.
Right.
It's the phenomena's fault.
Oh, man. You're going to get a gun. Thank you guys so much. And I know that season 3 is right around the corner. Everything is just primed and ready to go. I'm excited for that. And just keep rolling that rock uphill. And we're going to go along on this journey right beside you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much for having us.
This was so much fun.
And now go and enjoy the holiday season. Christmas is in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll try.
All right, guys. Thank you so much, Greg and Dana Newkirk. Now, Planet Weird, where is, and Hellier.tv, is there any place else that you would like everybody to go and keep up with you guys?
Yeah, if people are curious about Hellier and they want to know where to watch it, they can go to Hellier.tv. It's on Amazon Prime exclusively right now, but on Friday it will be released to YouTube worldwide. And if they're curious about me and Dana and the work that we do, they can go to paramuseum.com.
There you go. Thank you guys so much. Now go and enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Greg and Dana Newkirk. Again, the links for everything are over at jimmychurchradio.com. You can go and click right there. And with that, I got to roll credits and get out of here. We just went poll to poll. Thank you guys so much for doing overtime with us. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camarion. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast owned and copyrighted 2019 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I want to remind everybody, tomorrow night, right here, Randy Weitenheimer. Until then, I want everybody to be safe. Go Beckley Tepe.